What's up, everybody? It's Anthony Cubbage, and these are the Melody Shop Conversations, where we dive deep into improving and shaping our lives as musicians and beyond just as people. So if you're interested in music or you are a musician, I hope you find these helpful. This episode with Sophia Vastek is super special. We cover a huge range of topics like cutting-edge piano technology, having hobbies outside of music, having a beginner's mindset and being intentional in your art and believing in your art. My favorite part of this conversation is probably around the middle, where we touch on music as a vessel to spiritual experiences and the responsibility to guide your audience as a performer to have certain experiences in your performances. So I really can't wait for you to hear this. Even going back through and editing this, I have found such a source of inspiration in this conversation alone with Sophia. She's not only incredibly talented, but she's just full of wisdom, and she's a great communicator of ideas, and she cares about the people she spends time with on and off stage. I really hope you get a chance to dig into her music. It's just incredible. And there's more information on how to connect with her and find her in the show notes or the description below. So I hope you enjoy this episode, and let's just get into it. So Sophia Vastek, also an amazing pianist and owner of Organ Colossal with her husband Sam, and has an amazing space, the Troy Listening Room. So anything
that's pretty good. Just pianist, composer, and presenter, curator in various ways.
What do you feel like you most identify with? Which role, like if you were performer? All right, let's just simplify it. Just for piano, performer or composer?
100% both. I mean, performing came first as like a classical background pianist. It was very much like performing and, playing other people's music from a young, early age. And then composing came later. But At this point, my practice is so intertwined with both that it doesn't really...
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Interesting. I know, like, at least for me, part of the composition process is playing it. You don't just, like, think it up all the time,
Absolutely. I mean, all of my music comes from just sitting at the piano and improvising and playing, whatever. Yeah.
So, have you had any instances where you do get an idea where you're not at the piano? Because I know that's like sort of a thing for songwriters that like write lyrics and like have melodies and stuff. Or you ever have a melody or a feeling that you're like, oh, I really want to get this feeling onto the piano?
Yeah, for sure. Although I don't know that I've ever like successfully done that though. I feel like what usually happens is, I'll hear something in, my mind's ear, or even hearing someone else's music, something will just like inspire me. I'm like, oh, I really want to try this kind of thing. And then I'll sit down at the piano and then, kind of be tinkering with that. And then it usually turns into something else. I feel like I'm trying to think. I don't know that there's ever been like
even like a prompt, like a word that you've like taken and like, I know was one of those Fire, I forget the Rage one. Burn, yeah. I forget, I think that was a different kind of thing, right? That was like more based on like a personal experience, right?
Yeah, well, and again, it wasn't like, I really didn't like set out to write that song. Like it really just happened. Like it's just like where my frame of mind was when I was at the piano and writing. It wasn't like, oh, I want to write like a Rage song, let me go figure it out. It was literally like I'm texting with a friend and I am enraged and I'm also sitting at the piano, and then it just kind of happened that way.
It's convenient to be.
Yeah.
I feel like I always wish I had a piano when I was like in a bad mood, like that it was just there. Yeah. If only it was like a guitar. If only.
The piano?
Yeah.
Well,
I don't know, maybe someday.
I've been working on that actually. I don't know if you know this, you were at you were at the,
what's that thing?
the Round Lake show. Keybird. Yeah, it's huge. It's really like, okay, so it's this Danish company called Keybird. They really need to sponsor me because I've been telling everyone about these pianos. But in any case, if you're listening, Keybird. But anyway, yeah, so they essentially designed a lightweight, portable, upright piano. It is a little bit smaller. It's got 69 keys. But even so, I mean, all of the action, all of the mechanical components are exactly the same as a regular upright piano. They've just designed it in a really, really smart way so that it's light. It's about 130 pounds altogether. About 100 if you take it apart to the kind of core body of it and the action, which pulls out easily. So yeah, it's just, you can easily carry it with two people carrying it, and it's fine. Yeah.
Do you think that, I mean, would one person still struggle with it? Was it like possible?
It would be possible.
But you'd probably use a dolly or something?
Yeah, use a dolly. It's, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, it's insane. So like, how long did it take to set up for the show at Round Lake?
Well, the piano itself, not any time. Like, it's the rest of my setup that takes time. But yeah, the piano itself, you just kind of plop it into place. I mean, you do have to tune it. So there's that. You're
just talking about tuning the strings to each other, not tuning the overall like temperament, right? Or does it go out, like temperament goes out to?
I guess I don't really know how to like separate. Well,
tuning, but
yeah, I mean, I'm still like, I'm tuning it to 440, but
okay.
Yeah, I mean, you are tuning it also to itself.
Okay.
But it's single strings, so it's a lot easier.
Is that why it's so quiet?
Quiet and lighter, yeah. Okay. So there's a lot. You don't need as much
tension.
Like tension, yeah, exactly, because there are just fewer strings.
Interesting. So it is a lot more like a guitar. The fact that it's
or even like a harp. It's if you just kind of play it by itself, you know, it's very harp-like, I think. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about the cats.
That's okay. I love cats so much. I feel like they improve every situation, so it's fine.
I feel that. I just, sound-wise, it's, I guess, I don't know. But, okay, so let's go into, if you don't mind, I wanted to go into like some of the bigger questions. So when did you start doing music full-time, and was the transition difficult going into it? Or like, how did that look like, I guess?
So I feel lucky in some ways because there really wasn't like a moment when I just I shifted to doing it full time. Like, I had always been doing music professionally. And like, even, you know, I grew up playing piano. I grew up in a musical family, for better or worse. You know, there was just music everywhere. And I knew I wanted to do music from a very early age. Again, for better or worse. I'm not sure that it is better this way. But I never questioned it, if that makes sense. So even like back in high school, or even frankly middle school, I was already like doing gigs for money. Like, I mostly like accompanying stuff, you know, like playing for a choir, playing for an instrumentalist or whatever.
I feel like that's unique for pianists, I feel like, because there's not as many. I feel like the systems, since it's more of a soloistic instrument, like, it is a little easier to get those opportunities, maybe. Do you feel like that was the case? Because like, I feel like a horn player, you know, you have to have like a little bit more of a system in place with a band and like kind of rehearsals, and it's not as much of a
absolutely. I mean, accompanying like that itself is honestly a great way for pianists to make money, especially early on, because you just, you know, a lot of instrumentalists or singers or whatever need a pianist with them in one way or another. And so I started doing that pretty early. You know, I wasn't making tons of money, but like, that was it. Early on, I was already associating music making with
a career,
with money making and my career. And then like I did, you know, odd gigs here and there, like all through college, both my undergrad and then more so during my master's. So it's like there wasn't really like a now I'm starting my career moment. It was just like kind of a slow ongoing burn from an early age.
That's cool. That's cool. I had something similar with like getting jazz gigs in high school. Like some nursing home would call up the high school like band director, and they'd be like, "Yeah, throw these guys." Yeah,
exactly. And honestly, I do feel lucky in a lot of ways that I didn't question that aspect. I've questioned plenty of other things in my life.
So when you're in,
but like I never questioned that I was a musician and that I was a professional musician.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. I feel like that makes a lot of sense with like your maturity with business. Like, I feel like you're just, I mean, okay, so like musicians, like, okay, to some extent,
I appreciate that though.
I feel like, yeah, to some extent, all musicians, we give and take because we love what we do. But like, or like, at least I hope so. If you're doing this full time, I would hope that you're loving what you do. But I do feel like, I don't know, out of a lot of the people I know, you're really good at setting boundaries.
I love boundaries.
Yeah. As far as, I guess, going off of that, because I want to like kind of segue as much as I can, was there a time when you just like decided you really like growing up through that experience of being a career musician, were there any times you remember where you were like definitely had to put on the business hat more, like definitely had to be like, okay, I'm setting boundaries moving forward, this hurt me too much, as a like, do you have anything that you can like reminisce over? Maybe not, that has too much of a positive connotation, I guess, but
oh man, I mean, so many times. I'm just trying to think like what specifically to share. But yeah, I mean, there have just been so many times when and like kind of looking back on that after the fact, I was like, okay, I've really learned from this experience. I'm not going to do it that way again, or I'm going to do it this way going forward or whatever. I mean, I don't know. It's always a learning experience, frankly. I don't think there's ever a time where you've just got it all, quote, figured out. Like, and even now, like when I'm booking shows or just whatever it is, I truly, it feels like such a progression, like where I am right now, even from like, a couple years ago, I'm just like, wow, that's a huge difference in like how I approach it, huge difference in the fees that I'm getting. Like, it's just a constant change.
What do you think is the biggest change in how you approached it in the last like 5 years?
Well, it's a big part of it is just my practice, like my creative practice has shifted a lot. Now I'm coming into a show with honestly a fair amount of gear, which is evolving and new for me. And so I'm asking more of venues too, both financially and logistically. Okay. That feels fair. That feels really good, frankly, because I feel like I'm getting more and more into a position where I can ask for those things. Yeah. What was the question?
It was more, like, how has your practice and your business practices as a musician changed, and like how have your boundaries changed in those last 5 years? Yeah, I guess you kind of answered that.
Yeah, and I guess I've just gotten more and more comfortable asking for what I want and what I need, and I think that's a really important lesson, and like, I don't know, a venue or a presenter can say no, they can't do that, but you don't get it if you don't ask, know. And I feel like starting from a higher point, both like financially, technically, otherwise, you can always bring it back if they can't like do every single thing that you need. But like starting from a point of like, this is the ideal scenario, this is my ideal fee, ideal everything, and then we can negotiate from there.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That makes sense.
I feel like that's been a really big change for me over the last few years.
Yeah. I think I've been trying to do the same thing. Starting with the ideal, asking, and then, you know, and then having kind of an idea of, okay, if you do want to go, you know, lower, then there's a cost to that as well.
Right.
Like you have to barter, because like you have to stand up for your value. You know, it can't just be like, okay, yeah, sure, whatever.
No, of course, that's but you don't know, you don't know what they're going to be able to do unless you ask. And you can also decide not to do it if it arrives at a point where it's not going to be worth it financially or logistically, you know?
Right.
So I also love saying no to things. Like, frankly, you know, I think I've gotten a lot better about like the scarcity mindset thing. Like it just doesn't, it honestly feels really good sometimes to say no to stuff, because I'm like, you know, fine. Like this is both a learning experience for the venue, that there are people who need this to make it work. Yeah, and also for me, it's like, great. I like, you know, I'd rather know up front that this is not going to be the right gig for me than like go through it and find out that it's not the right gig for me.
And most times I feel like I've noticed is when they don't uphold that value, or don't want to work with you to find a way to make it work, don't see that it's worth it, then it's not worth it for us either.
Right.
I guess how often do you get to experience music in a personal way in now that it's, you know, you've been doing it as a career for so long? Do you feel like it was ever hard to bring that back to yourself and like making it more personal? That experience of like listening or playing just for yourself and writing and.
I guess I don't really like. Do you mean of like the music that I like, my music making? Like, how do I make it? What? I guess I'm not sure.
I think I jumped to it. I think I jumped to another question too soon.
It's okay.
I think I was trying to segue too well, and Wilbur is being just
the cutest.
Yeah,
Wilbur is being the cutest.
The most distracting thing ever.
Are you asking about like work-life balance, or like how do I keep my music like personal to me?
Keep it special and personal. Yeah, I think I was starting to talk about personal time, but you kind of did answer that in like your pricing, and that kind of I feel like does help. You know, okay, if somebody wants to make more personal time, they change their pricing and, you know, change the way they. Well, okay. I want to hear your let's start there.
I think it's really, really hard. And my husband, Sam, partner in life and art, as we like to say, I mean, we are constantly assessing our time. Constantly. Like all the time, every day, practically. And there are periods, frankly, right now where it's been really hard and we don't feel like we have the time that we really need, both for like ourselves personally together, but also like we work on a lot of projects together and we haven't had time. Like he's producing my album right now and we haven't had time recently to work on that, and that also doesn't feel good. And like we haven't been able to go on vacation in a little bit, which we've been really trying to prioritize. Anyway, all this to say, it all feels constantly like we're assessing and figuring it out, you know? And there are times when it's working and times when it isn't, but like I don't think it's a pricing thing, you know, because
it's more complicated.
It's more complicated than that, because it just is, and you really can't, like you can control to a degree, you know, how much you take on at any given time, obviously. But at the same time, like recently I had a really big deadline and for these arrangements, and I was like crazy. Like I knew it was coming for like a month, you know, and it still was like an insane month of getting it together.
Deadline for your own music or deadline for like another project?
Well, both.
Oh, okay.
I was commissioned to arrange some of my music for this group that I'm also going to be like playing with these expanded arrangements of. And they gave me a deadline, and it was like part of this grant thing. Anyway, so there was a deadline. And you know, that made the month leading up to it insane because it was like a really tight deadline for me. So, but you know, that
you
kind
work
of
with the opportunities that you have.
Yeah, so and I was and still am really excited about that project, and it was, you know, a really good amount of money that made sense for what it was, and like, you know, I'm excited to work with them, but it still made the month really insane and stressful. Just,
do you think it's just a freelance problem? Like, because I know Sam, he's not really totally full time at.
He's full time
at the college.
He's full time at Skidmore. Also works freelance.
Okay.
And then on top of that is trying to make time for his own projects, my projects, and our projects together. Yeah. So, you know, it's just a lot. And I don't know that there's ever like a time when you have it all totally figured out, because you know, something else will come along, and there's never like. I don't know. I think it's just constantly assessing your balance.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right.
It's just unbelievable. If you want to give it to me, I'll take it.
I mean,
no,
yes.
No, it's fine. You can keep your cat.
I'm worried about him just like, okay, now he's making notes. Okay, buddy. Could you be like, watch the cameras for me instead of, yeah, okay. All right. Yeah. There you go. Baby. Okay. So I feel like that's so relatable. I can't imagine like both being artists going through that, and like, I mean, it is like good to have somebody always to like connect with on that level. But yeah, I feel like Nicole has been like so great about understanding that, and that makes the biggest difference with I think if it takes a special person to be in a relationship with a musician or an artist. Let's just say an artist, because like, let's be real, I think part of the problem is it's always about what is, again, how can we improve? So we're always looking to new opportunities, and those opportunities aren't always coming at the perfect time. So then it like causes us to like react. So we're always reactionary, and maybe it's more complicated than just personal life and business, and it's just a cultural thing that the culture needs to change for us to have some sense of normalcy. I don't know, but I've just come to be okay with the kind of influxness of it. I think that's just, you know, until there's like a universal basic income. Like, I mean, really, you know, until there's that, like, I think especially for artists, that's huge, but there's got to be so many people that would, I feel like, benefit.
Oh my gosh, so many.
Because I think a lot of people who, like, I mean, the majority of people I would say have regular job, or like maybe like, I don't know, maybe it's more people have gig work than I think, but
I think a lot of people are gig or contract workers.
What do you think, 75% of it?
I mean, I don't know, but
the people who make laws aren't probably not doing gig work, right? So it's like, they're not going to be able to relate to
exactly
that lifestyle.
But,
and
more and more employers and companies are not paying full-time with benefit, employees. They're paying contract workers.
That's true. So they're acting the same way basically as a gig worker.
I mean,
working
at this
FedEx
point,
per hour. Yeah.
Exactly. At this point, I feel like so many people are just their own business, in whatever field that is, but you're piecing together different contracts, different gigs, whatever.
Do you think the internet has pushed that? I know it's also greed. But do you think
it's mostly capitalism?
Yeah. But do you think, I don't know, I personally have a theory that the world has just been getting more individually focused because of the internet. Ironically, even though we have more connectivity, the remote work, the ability to work remotely has, increased. So there's a lot more of an ability to work without an office setting or a system with coworkers in person. So there's also a lot less, I feel communication on a personal level as far as what your work life looks like, and talking about your everyday problems. There's no. It's funny because all the people 20, 30 years older will call it water cooler talk, but it's that's not even a thing now. I feel I don't know. I don't know what you think. But.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the internet has certainly sped up a lot of things, but I don't know. I think this started before the internet, frankly. Kind of this move towards a very consolidated capitalism, where, people at the top are just getting exponentially richer than the people at the bottom, and that divide has been happening for a long time.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh. Again, it all feels it all comes down to voting, but I'm not going to go there again.
Yeah.
It feels it's hard not to. It's it feels so relevant, how else are you going to change something so ingrained in capitalism's so ingrained in part of our country. So it's
I will say, I don't know how much you want to talk about this, but I have been thinking a lot about my feelings this election versus the first time Trump was elected.
Yeah.
The first time, I think, was worse for me, and I think a lot of people that I've talked to, because it was such a shock.
We didn't know it was
just came out of, it felt like it came out of left field, and, of course, people smarter than me would say it didn't come out of left field. But in any case, it felt like such a punch to the gut.
Yeah.
This time around, and I think there are a few reasons for this. It wasn't as surprising. In fact, I was thinking it would probably happen. And I feel weirdly, I've been really grappling with this. I feel weirdly more okay this time around. And this is obviously just, sorry, this is obviously just me speaking completely personally, but I am more rooted in my very local community than I was the first time Trump was elected. Mm. And I think that has really significantly changed my outlook. Because I'm at a point now where I'm politicians don't care about me.
Yep.
They truly don't. Yeah. At least at the federal level. Yeah. I think we have some really great local politicians, but at the federal level, they don't care about me. Yeah. My neighbors care about me, and I care about my neighbors. And I think there's very real community care that happens on that level. And I feel increasingly more hopeful about that than I do about literally anything else. And I'm like, you know, when shit hits the fan, if it does, when it does, I have people on my block that I can talk to, that they will take care of me, I will take care of them, you know. And I think that increasingly is where I feel like we have to put our efforts, because it actually makes a difference.
And we can actually do something about it, like
it makes a difference.
Instead of waiting 4 years, we can.
Right, it makes a really big difference. So
I think
like hyper-local community, like your neighborhood, and then also like very local politics, I think that has the most capacity for both impact and change than anything on a federal level, where I'm just like, I don't know how this can improve, because it's just all so messed up. And that's when I get depressed. But I get a lot less depressed when I think about my place in my very local community.
That's so true. Yeah.
But it feels weird to talk about that. Like, it feels very weird to be like, I feel more hopeful now. Yeah.
But that's a personal thing.
It's weird.
It's a smaller thing. I mean, like, we could talk about world politics and be upset about world politics.
Right.
But, you know, we talk about our nation, and it like, I think you're totally right. Like, but I also think a lot of people have been missing the idea of having in-person experiences, having in-person relationships, having like face-to-face community in general, and their communities on Reddit, their communities on so it's been more alienating for the communities. And I feel like, you know, now that you're bringing this up, it makes me wonder if really the problem is the community, the problem is, you know, the isolation.
Well, and so to bring it back to music, I have felt this for a long time, but, you know, each kind of gut punch like this recent election makes it feel stronger, that live music is really important
for building community.
Well, yes, but if you really think about it, like, how many spaces are there where you're in a room with a group of strangers sometimes, where you're not on your phones, at least depending on what the type of music space, but where you're all putting your attention into the same thing.
You could say church,
and where you're both putting your attention into the same thing, but also allowed to have your own reaction to it, right? And it's vibrations, like, it's literally physical vibrations that are moving through bodies in a room. I just, like, intuitively feel like those kinds of spaces on, like, especially on the smaller scale, you know, microculture, whatever you want to call it, rooms where you can be together with other people, where you have no other objective but to experience some art, experience something beautiful, experience something vulnerable. That just feels so sacred to me and increasingly important. So, you know, I'm not saying that, like, what I'm doing specifically is sacred, but, like, the act of that, whether it's me as a vessel for a room to be together, or whether it's someone else that's creating that space, I don't know. No, it feels like, sort of feels like spiritual. Everything at this time.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah. No, I totally feel that, and I think it depends on also, again, bringing it back to music. I mean, music is so many of these things, but I feel like the intention behind the space, the intention behind the performance is so important. Like, I'm gonna be honest, like, I don't always feel that every performance I go to, and not to like toot your own horn or anything, but like I felt that a lot in your I feel that a lot in your performances.
Oh, thank you.
And I think it's because like of what you just said, you have a clear understanding of like how special that is and how much it can really change.
I think there's a responsibility, frankly, for any artist. If you're gathering people into a room, if you're, taking up space and time, you have a responsibility to make it a space where people feel something, but especially welcome and safe and able to be in their own like emotional space.
Yeah.
If I don't know, it feels like a huge responsibility as an artist. Like you can't just like ask people to come to something and then not take it seriously. Like you have to take it seriously.
100%. Yeah, that's honestly part of the reason why I have so much fear performing, is because I see and feel that responsibility, and I don't feel like I can dedicate enough time and energy to give people what they deserve. But this is that's a more personal thing, so I don't.
No, but I mean, you obviously have a lot to offer, so it's not that, and I think that it doesn't even matter what you do up there. It's like it matters the intention.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah. And
people feel that, like even if you got up there and improvised for an hour. I mean, really, like if you bring to it a care and vulnerability and intention and honesty about who you are as a musician, people will feel it and they'll be there for it, Yeah.
This might sound like it's getting really out there, but thinking about this more critically, like it's making me think about like, I used to be like very, and again, don't want to get too personal here because this is like your thing, but like I used to be a lot more religious, and I felt like when I discovered that feeling, it enhanced also like where my music went, like being like that spiritual feeling and understanding that for the first time, like when I was in middle school, like totally it leaked into the music. And I think what I kind of, now that I'm not as much of a religiously involved person, I think there are a lot of people who are trying to look for those spiritual experiences in places, and they don't know where to go. And, hearing somebody preach is not always necessarily, or like people say words is not necessarily what they want to, like the experience they want. But they are looking, I believe, for that opportunity to be vulnerable without having to be the center of attention, and a shared experience, which is like, I feel like it's so much in our DNA to have Absolutely. That. And so, this might be, again, going out pretty far out, but I sometimes feel like a musician is kind of like a vessel to things bigger than ourselves.
100%.
Then in the same way that a preacher is a vessel to, scripture or whatever, a sermon, like, when somebody's giving a good sermon, even if they say good words doesn't mean it's a good sermon. Even if you're technically a great musician doesn't mean it's a good performance.
Absolutely.
And so I feel like that's, what you were talking about the intent. It's so applicable to those kinds of experiences. And it's making me wonder, like, what other kind of experiences can we give to people like this? Not just in music, but just in our everyday experiences and our everyday, like, opportunities to meet up as a community and, get closer to each other. And it's making me think. So I don't know. Do you have anything else you want to talk on that, or should I?
Well, I think it's a very kind of vague, ephemeral thing that we're talking about. Yeah. And it's really, really hard to pinpoint what it is about a performance that really works.
Resonates, yeah.
Versus when it doesn't quite work, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've gone to plenty of shows where I've walked away and I've been like, why wasn't that better? You know, I mean, really, like, not to be mean, like, fantastic performers or whatever it was, you know, and I didn't, like, feel what I felt like I should feel. And then vice versa, sometimes I'll walk away from a show and just be like, holy shit, how did they do that? Like, it just, you know, and you don't know. Like, you can't put it into words. And the same is true for me. Like, when I walk away from a show, sometimes I'm like, yes, that was like, I feel so good about that. Like, the energy was right. And then sometimes I walk away and I'm like, that didn't quite work. Like,
I think it also has to
how do I make this better?
Yeah.
You know?
I think there's not only a responsibility in the musician, there's a responsibility in everyone who's going to see that performance. It's like, everyone needs to be supporting each other to have an experience that they wish to have that's personal. Like when you go to a meditation at a Buddhist temple or whatever, you know, everyone needs to be understanding of giving people the space to experience that. You know, otherwise nobody's going to have a successful or like a good experience meditating. Nobody's going to have, and I feel like the same thing goes with.
That's true. But I think it's up to the performer to be a guide in that capacity.
That's
and
so true.
So, you know, because people need to know,
set the expectations.
Yeah, exactly. In so many words, you know, you can't kind of expect people to come in the right headspace. Like, you have to guide them to that place.
That's a good point. That's a really good point. Yeah. But yeah, I guess there's still mutual respect that everybody has to know, you know.
Yeah.
It's like,
for sure.
Not that anybody's doing like astral travel or anything crazy. Nobody's like trying to go to a music performance to, like, you know, go out of body. Like, I mean, sometimes it happens, but not like, okay, I'm going to the Andromeda galaxy tonight. I don't know. Anyway, okay. Let's go back to something, I guess, like, a little lighter, even though I freaking love talking about this stuff.
Yeah, same.
I just love it. But I was, one of the things I wrote down that I was curious about, do you have any other artistic hobbies, and do you feel like full-time musicians tend to neglect other hobbies that they had growing up or being their full selves?
I mean, I can't really speak to other musicians because I feel like I see a lot of musicians who are, like, also fabulous visual artists, you know, or hobbyists, whatever.
It's crazy. Yeah.
For me personally, I am, like, so bad about hobbies. I mean, really, like, I was just talking to a friend the other day where I was like, I feel like I need a hobby.
Do you think it's because you've been doing it like all your life? Like, well, not all your, like,
I don't know.
I mean, of your life
I used to do visual art when I was younger, and I loved it, and I think I was, like, decent at it, but I stopped, and now I'm like, oh, I'm a terrible artist or whatever. But I don't know. I think it's just, like, it's just who I am. Like, I'm not good at, like, kind of keeping up with hobbies. I wish I did, frankly, because I feel like it would probably help my, like, emotional state.
Have you thought about, like, scheduling hobby time, personal time, like, or do you schedule, like, time with Sam at all, or is that, like, okay?
We have to.
That's cool.
Yeah, we have a very complicated Google Calendar. We, like, schedule out, like, when we're gonna work on music together, or when we're gonna, like, go away for a weekend. I mean, because if it doesn't get on the calendar, it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But just, so it's not a scheduling thing. It's just like me personally. I tried to take drum lessons for like a hot minute because I just love playing the drums. And then I kind of let it, taper off because, well, money, like paying for lessons and, just excuses and dumb shit. So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
The answer is no. That I would love to kind of work on that as a person.
So is drums the one instrument that if you could like play at another high, like another instrument you wish like you had like the full ability that you do as far as like if you had transferred? I'm awful at phrasing questions.
I would love to be able to play drums. Yes.
That's what I meant.
Well, and especially because, I don't know that my music really comes across this way, but I feel the piano as a rhythm instrument, as a percussion instrument.
I started on drums and I moved to piano.
Yeah.
And it felt like the world opened up to me so I'm curious as far, because you're like the opposite. It sounds like you're the opposite. You want to like open that world up into like the timbral kind of world. For me, I had a lot of timbres, but I didn't see, and I think I would approach drums differently now since I see them, all these different timbres as notes on the, like as a, the same way a pianist would see a scale. I didn't see it that way when I was starting and when I like when I was getting a little more advanced. So I wanted to make just more pretty sounds. And I was just like, I basically started by just like, tapping, like doing rudiments on the keyboard. That's and so funny. Tapping and it, yeah.
I actually don't, sure, like in an alternate reality, I'd love to be like amazing at drums, but I actually, in a weird way, want to play drums so that I can like play something. How do I put this? Like the piano, because I've been playing it my whole life, is so wrapped up in like so many complex layers of like just everything, and the way that I approach the piano, which I love playing the piano. I love whatever. I love all of that. But it's
technically locked, do you think? Like,
no, it's not even that. Like, it's just I bring a lot of like, kind of experience. Complex like layers to the piano because I've just been playing it for so long. Like, I'd love to be able to play the drums and just like play loud and like in 4/4. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Like, I just want to like, you know, play like really simple, just like hard, loud shit.
Beginner's mindset. That's what it's all about.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's like, and not to like get to some like crazy level of drumming. Like, again, sure, that'd be fun if that happened, but no, it's like, just like, yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally feel that. I mean, that's the reason why I picked up a guitar.
Yeah.
I mean,
how's that working out?
I mean, now it's different than it used to be,
yeah.
but it's still the one instrument that I try. I like am intentional about like not trying to learn too much. I try to stay like intuitive with it. And I feel like it's so important to have something like that, whether it's art, like visual art or another instrument, like, but having enough technical knowledge that you can move
right.
and like express yourself, but not too much to the point where, you're bringing in some kind of psychological aspect to it. It's like you want it to be unconscious. You want all the experience to be,
Well, and I actually feel like I'm a pretty intuitive piano player. Like I really, weirdly, when I'm writing, like I actually really don't feel like I get that into my head about it.
That, yeah.
But at the same time, because I've been playing piano for so long, because I'm so technically proficient, it's like there are so many possibilities with the piano. And the idea of having an instrument where there are actually very few possibilities because of my own technical like lack, that actually feels very appealing.
In a way, I think it's freeing. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, because I don't know. I think that as we become as we grow into adulthood, there's just less experiences that are new to us, and I think
Absolutely.
finding new ways to introduce novelty is just like so important, and like that's just like our inner inner kids are always like trying to like, I feel like, get out that energy of being a beginner, being new to something. So I maybe it is just that it's not really as far as like an unconscious experience you're trying to tap into, which I do think having less experience on an instrument can help with that, not being locked into like a technical mindset, but maybe it is just like being a kid and wanting to have that experience again. I don't
Absolutely.
know. My last question, I guess, would be, do you have any advice for those thinking of committing themselves to art or music full time? And I know you haven't had the same experience that like a lot of people do when making these like transitions, but like, I don't know if Sam has, or if you've like had any, like seen him go through this, but would you advise people that it's more of a save up and quit and then figure it out kind of person, or is like would you be more on that kind of this part of the spectrum, or more of a slow burn, trial run / like build up to totally full-time workloads, and then, or like part-time workload on music and then quit? I don't know. I think a lot of people are always trying to figure out how to get out,
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know that I have a great answer for that, because it's really going to be so different for everyone. But I think it also just boils down to believing in your art. You have to start there.
Yeah.
And if you don't, like 1,000%, then you need to get to that point where you do, because otherwise it's not going to work. And then you have to get really good at just putting yourself out there and staying the course. I've been like coming back to this phrase recently. It's become like a bit of a motto in our house of stay the course. And it has its kind of
changes.
Well, so it's not about staying stuck. It's just about like believing in what you're doing and doing it. Because as soon as you wait for validation, as soon as you wait for the gig to come to you, as soon as you wait for literally anything, and I think that includes just like time spent. If you're waiting for some moment when something's going to happen, it's not going to happen. So stay the course, meaning do the work and just believe in it. And because that might be it. Like you might not get that like thing that you think is going to happen, that's going to open up the world to you. It doesn't work that way.
That's kind of what I meant by changing your course, being open to changing.
I think it's going to look different for everyone, but if you believe in it and you just do it, and I mean, it's work, you have to put in the time, you have to put in the work. And if you can't for any reason, or you're not quite there yet, that's okay. But at the end of the day, it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of work.
Yeah. I also feel like there's just so much work that I think one thing that I want to try to get out to people is that there are so many different opportunities out there. And you don't really know until you start putting in the work, start putting in those,
Absolutely.
Getting in front of people and letting them know what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to put yourself out there in front of people, in whatever way that looks for a person. But but it's really hard, and the financial aspect of it is not to be discredited. Like it's really, really hard financially, and there's no way around that. And every single person's career financial situation is going to look slightly different.
Yeah. I also feel like I used to discredit that living in the right place for music was a real thing. But then when we moved here, then I was like, oh, this is a place where music is valued, and that makes a huge difference on like my career, at least. But then there's also work online, and there's plenty of work online if you're not in the right place. But I also feel like people tend to think that the most popular places for music are the right places to go, and I don't think that's a good thing to have in your mindset either, because it's just so saturated, and then there's more competition, and then I don't know, but I like Troy is what I'm saying.
I think it still boils down to how much you believe in your art, and and maybe even more than that, how like rooted in your art you are. The more you know who you are as an artist, and you believe in that, and you know it to be true, that will take you so far.
That's a good point.
And like if you're moving to New York City or Nashville or whatever, and you don't know who you are as an artist, you will get lost.
Yeah. No,
you have to know who you are to survive in a place like that.
That's a good point.
Otherwise, you're going to get swept up into something, or you'll never do anything, or
it's hard to find a community too.
Right, or you just, I mean, it's you have to survive in anywhere, and especially in places like that where it's so expensive to live, and you're going to take the gigs that you can. But then meanwhile, if you don't know who you are and you're just taking every gig, then you'll never be able to figure out who you actually are.
Yeah. It's a good point. It takes the saying no helps to, I guess, curate your own.
Absolutely. I mean, if like a young person came up to me, let's say fresh out of college or high school even, and was like, I'm going to move to New York City and do the thing. And if they were asking me for advice, I would be like, stay here.
Figure out who you are. Perform
a whole bunch in wherever, coffee shops, bars, house shows. Perform, like, do some recording. Like, figure out what your sound is. Like, figure out who you are as an artist. And then once you have a little bit better idea, then try moving to New York City or wherever,
Yeah. I feel like
there isn't space and time to do that if you just go straight into that kind of market.
I feel like that goes back, and not to make a whole circle, I feel like that goes back to intention. It's like if you're intentional to figure out who you are, then you get closer to the most genuine kind of like authentic way of music making, which will help make those performances more intentional.
Yeah.
Because if you're trying to be something or trying to figure out who you are while you're giving these performances, how can you put the intent in your audience when you're trying to put all this intent and figuring out who you are? I don't know. That's just like how it seems to me. And I think I was doing that a lot when I was building a band and building that persona, because I thought I was doing it because I thought that's what needed to be done to make a living off music, and I thought that was more important than understanding what I needed as a musician personally. So anything else you want to mention? Sounding Softly, maybe bring that.
I have a newsletter called Sounding Softly.
Yeah, it's awesome, and people should go check it out. I don't know. I'm like, it's easy to talk to you, and then it's like talking to a third person kind of thing doesn't really seem to work. but I'm trying. And then, yeah, anything else? So, like, do you have any performances coming up?
Yeah, so the project that I mentioned earlier, it's this group called Now Ensemble. They're fantastic. They're celebrating their 20th season this year as a group.
That's cool.
And they're doing a little tour, and they're stopping in Troy, and they're performing at our place, Troy Listening Room. But
are they a choir, or is it?
No, it's like a chamber group.
Oh, okay, that's cool. Is it people from a bunch of different areas, or is it like New York City based, or? They're
actually pretty scattered. There are a few of them that are in the city. It's 5 people. There's one that's like, I don't even know, out somewhere Midwest. Anyway, they're great, and they're friends of ours, and they commissioned me and Sam actually to write the new music for this season.
Wow.
And
wait, so you're composing their whole repertoire for this season?
No.
Okay. Sorry. I must have missed that.
No. They so I'll just talk about my project for them. They commissioned me, and we discussed the project, and what I've ended up doing is arranging some of my music for their instrumentation.
But that's not their whole set.
No. Yeah, they've got all their own repertoire, and then they've also commissioned a bunch of other composers for this like season, kind of specifically.
That's cool, though. That's cool.
Yeah, it is. And
they're collaborating in the midst of all that with those musicians that they're asking to arrange. So that's wow, that's cool. Yeah.
So right, so they're stopping here actually this coming weekend, and although I think this is gonna come after that, but in any case,
I might end up it's
fine.
We'll see.
Whatever you need to keep or cut is fine. But yeah, so they're coming on Friday, and we're going to workshop the music with them, and I'm going to be playing with them. So yeah, we're going to like workshop it, see how it sounds, make some changes, all that stuff. Awesome. And then performing it as kind of a first premiere or kind of a works in progress type performance this Saturday.
Nice.
And then we're keeping the door open for future performances. They've expressed some interest in recording the music, and so we'll see where it goes. But this is kind of like the first workshopping period for it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So when's the deadline? Not to
well, the deadline has passed.
Oh, the deadline has passed. Okay, so the stressful part is over.
Yeah.
Okay. I was like, okay, at least you're not in the middle.
They've got music in hands. Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. So they can start rehearsing and stuff. Okay.
Yeah, and because they're coming on Friday, and we're gonna rehearse it and workshop it together.
Okay.
And then the next kind of big local show is in January, at Zenkel. I'm part of their new surround series.
Zenkel? How do you is that
at Skidmore?
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
gotcha.
the Zenkel Music Center.
Okay.
They have a new series called the Surround series, and they've had really cool musicians on this series. So I'm really looking forward to that.
So what is the Surround? Not to go too much into it, but what is those is the audience in the center and the musicians?
The audience. So it's basically like the Lift series that Sam and I do at the Music Hall. They've got all the audience on stage with the musician. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. That's interesting. I was thinking what if it was the opposite of music or around. Opposite of audience on the outside, but you're surrounded by musicians.
That would be cool, but it would probably
feel kind of nerve-wracking.
And would require a lot of musicians.
and a lot of live sound knowledge that is probably way above me because feedback. But all right, yeah, it was awesome talking with you, and I think people are gonna get a lot out of what you have to say. So thanks so much for doing this. All right, bye.
Bye.
So that's it for this one. I hope you found parts of this helpful and informative, or at least entertaining. If you did, please like the video and comment below what parts really spoke to you, or you can follow and rate the podcast. You can find more info on each guest in the show notes or description below to learn more about them, listen to their music, or see when they have a show or talk near you. If you have any suggestions for who to interview next or any specific topics you want me to touch on, you can reach me on Instagram at _Cubbage_. That's like cabbage with a U. And until then, I'll see you in the next one.